Inflation, jobs and wages, why life feels so expensive. Welcome back. If you found yourself wincing at the grocery store checkout or felt a pit in your stomach looking at your utility bill, you are not alone. Across the globe, a pervasive feeling has set in, that no matter how hard you work, your money just doesn't stretch as far as it used to. In this video, we will dissect the complex economic forces behind this feeling. The primary culprit is a word we've all come to know intimately: inflation. It's the invisible tax eating away at our wallets. At its core, inflation is when the general level of prices rises and the purchasing power of your money falls. When this price surge outpaces income growth, our standard of living declines, and in recent years, that gap has widened into a chasm for millions. To understand our current situation, we have to rewind to the 2020 pandemic, which brought the global economy to a halt. In response, governments and central banks injected trillions of dollars and euros into the system through stimulus checks and business loans. The goal was to prevent a catastrophic depression. However, this massive cash infusion had a powerful side effect. With services like travel and dining shut down, people redirected their spending towards physical goods. This created a massive surge in demand, a classic case of what economists call demand pull inflation. Simultaneously, the ability to produce and deliver those goods was collapsing. Factory shutdowns, a global shortage of shipping containers, and port logjams created historic bottlenecks. This was cost-push inflation in action. The cost of raw materials and shipping soared, and these higher costs were inevitably passed on to consumers. To make matters worse, the war in Ukraine sent shockwaves through global energy and food markets, adding another powerful layer of cost-push inflation. The result was a perfect storm, a tidal wave of demand crashing against a wall of supply constraints. Too much money was chasing too few goods, and prices exploded. Faced with this inflationary spiral, central banks like the US Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank deployed their primary weapon: raising interest rates. The goal is to make borrowing money more expensive, thereby cooling down economic activity. For consumers, this means the dream of home ownership gets further away as mortgage rates climb. Car loans become more costly, and the interest on credit card debt balloons. This is a delicate balancing act. The intention is to reduce demand to stabilize prices, but it also squeezes household budgets and increases the risk of a recession. This brings us to the job market paradox. On the surface, news seems positive, with many economies reporting low unemployment rates. But these headline figures mask a more troubling reality about wages. The key concept is the difference between nominal wages, the number on your paycheck, and real wages, what that paycheck can actually buy after inflation. For the past few years, while nominal wages have increased for many, those raises have been completely erased by soaring prices. If you received a 3% raise but inflation is 6%, you've effectively taken a 3% pay cut in purchasing power. This is the core of the problem. Layered on top of all this is a powerful long-term force: technological disruption. The rapid advancement of artificial intelligence and automation is fundamentally reshaping work. This isn't just about robots on an assembly line. AI is now performing tasks previously done by white-collar workers. While technology creates new jobs, it also exerts a downward pressure on wages in many sectors. Why give a worker a significant raise when a software solution can do the job cheaper? This creates a growing skills gap. The jobs being eliminated are often not in the same category as the ones being created. A factory worker cannot easily transition into a role as a data scientist, leaving millions in a precarious position, facing either job displacement or wage stagnation. So when we pull these threads together, the picture becomes clear. It's a multifaceted crisis. Sky-high inflation, driven by a perfect storm of pandemic stimulus and supply shocks, has eroded our purchasing power. The central bank's cure, higher interest rates, has made debt and housing more burdensome. And while jobs may seem plentiful, real wages for the majority have failed to keep pace. All of this is happening against a backdrop of technological change that fuels deep uncertainty. It's this combination of factors that explains why so many people feel the system is stacked against them, a feeling of being squeezed from all sides. Understanding these interconnected forces is the first step toward navigating them. If you found this detailed breakdown helpful, please show your support by subscribing to the channel and liking this video. Your engagement helps us create more in-depth content like this. Welcome back. In this video, we're tackling one of the most painful parts of today's economy: housing, debt, and the pervasive financial squeeze that so many people feel every single day. It's more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's a constant low-grade anxiety that hums in the background of our lives. It's the feeling of running faster and faster just to stay in the same place. A sense that the basic building blocks of a secure life are slipping out of reach. This pressure cooker environment is fueled by two interconnected crises that define our era: the soaring cost of keeping a roof over your head and the crushing weight of the debt taken on to survive. Let's break down how we got here, starting with the cornerstone of the modern dream: a place to call home. Let's start with housing. For older generations, particularly the baby boomers, buying a home was considered a normal, achievable milestone. It was the bedrock of middle-class life, a tangible symbol of success earned through steady work. The economic conditions of the post-war era, characterized by strong unions, stable single-income jobs, and a much lower home price-to-income ratio, made this dream a reality for millions. Today, for millennials and Gen Z, that same dream often feels like a cruel fantasy. Home prices, which were already climbing steadily, absolutely exploded during the pandemic and have stubbornly refused to return to earth. This wasn't just a random spike, it was a perfect storm. The sudden shift to remote work created a frantic race for space, while rock-bottom interest rates intended to stimulate the economy poured gasoline on the fire. Compounding the problem, global supply chain disruptions and labor shortages meant that the construction of new homes couldn't keep up with the surge in demand. On top of that, as central banks began aggressively raising interest rates to combat inflation, the cost of borrowing skyrocketed. This created a brutal double whammy. The houses were more expensive than ever, and the loans required to buy them became painfully expensive too. Consider this: a home that once seemed affordable with a 3% mortgage rate now costs hundreds, sometimes thousands more each month at 7%. Over the life of a 30-year loan, this can add up to hundreds of thousands of dollars in extra interest payments, effectively locking an entire generation out of the market. And if you think you can just wait it out by renting, you're not safe either. The intense competition in the home buying market has spilled over directly into the rental market, creating a nightmare for tenants. In major cities across the globe, from New York to Amsterdam or Madrid, it's now common for rent to eat up half or even more of a person's take-home pay. The long-standing financial rule of thumb that you shouldn't spend more than 30% of your income on housing has become a bitter joke. When half your salary is gone before you've even bought groceries, the ability to save for a down payment, invest for retirement, or even handle an unexpected emergency becomes virtually impossible. And while it's easy to blame landlords, they too are often caught in the squeeze. They're facing their own higher costs from increased mortgage rates on their properties, soaring property taxes, and astronomical insurance premiums, especially in areas prone to climate-related disasters. Inevitably, they pass these costs on to their tenants in the form of relentless rent hikes. This unaffordable housing market forces people to lean on the other broken pillar of personal finance: debt. Debt makes life even harder, acting like an anchor dragging down financial progress. It comes in many forms. Student loans taken on for a promise of a better future now saddle young people with mortgage-sized payments before they even earn their first real paycheck. Then there's credit card debt, which has morphed from a convenience into a critical lifeline for many families, used to cover non-negotiable expenses like gas and food when wages fall short. And new, deceptively easy forms of credit like buy now, pay later services encourage spending beyond one's means with just a few taps on a screen. With rising interest rates, paying off these debts becomes a grueling uphill battle. Variable rates on credit cards mean balances can swell overnight. What starts as a manageable debt can quickly spiral out of control, where you're paying more in interest each month than you are on the principal, making it slower, costlier, and sometimes impossible to escape. It's not just individuals and families. Governments are also drowning in debt. Decades of deficit spending, compounded by massive stimulus packages during the pandemic and other crises, have pushed national debts to historic, eye-watering levels. And how do governments manage this? the burden inevitably falls back on you. They may raise taxes, income, sales, or property taxes, which directly reduces your disposable income, or they cut public spending. This isn't an abstract concept. It means underfunded schools, longer waits for healthcare, deteriorating roads and bridges, and a weaker social safety net. Both paths hit ordinary people the hardest. So we see a vicious, self-reinforcing cycle. Housing is too expensive, forcing people to take on more debt. That heavy debt consumes a huge portion of income, which is already failing to keep pace with inflation. And stagnant wages make it impossible to save enough to escape the rental trap or pay down debt. This combination traps people in a state of financial precarity. It erodes mental health, fuels anxiety, and makes it impossible to save, invest, or even dream of a stable future. The freedom to take a risk, to start a business, change careers, or pursue a passion evaporates when you're living paycheck to paycheck. Understanding these interconnected pressures is vital. It helps us see that the financial struggles many face are not the result of individual failure, like buying too much coffee, but are symptoms of a deeply flawed system. But awareness is the first step toward demanding meaningful change. By understanding the mechanics of the housing shortage, the nature of debt, and the impact of government policy, we can begin to advocate for real solutions. If you found this breakdown valuable and want to continue exploring the complex forces shaping our economy, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Your support helps us create more in-depth content like this. Welcome back. In this final crucial part of our series, we're pulling back the lens. We've explored the personal pressures of inflation, the shifting sands of the job market, and the weight of debt. Now, we connect these threads to the vast, intricate web of the global economy. We'll dissect the powerful forces of geopolitical tension and technological disruption to understand not just where we are, but where the future may be heading. The modern economy is, by its very design, global. For the past half-century, the world has pursued a model of hyper-globalization. The goal was efficiency above all else. Complex, just-in-time supply chains were built to stretch across oceans. Financial markets became intertwined in a 24/7 dance of capital. And the internet erased borders for information and services. This interconnectedness brought unprecedented growth and cheaper goods, but it also created profound vulnerabilities. What happens in one part of the world doesn't just affect everyone, it can trigger a cascade. We saw this with the 2008 financial crisis, where a problem in the US subprime mortgage market ignited a global inferno, demonstrating how tightly our financial fates are bound together. A localized spark can and will become a global wildfire. Today, these vulnerabilities are being exposed by geopolitical friction. Wars or trade disputes are no longer distant events, they hit our wallets directly. The conflict in Ukraine, for example, didn't just create a humanitarian crisis, it weaponized energy and food supplies. When gas flows were cut, European energy prices skyrocketed, fueling inflation. When grain shipments were blocked, food security became a concern thousands of miles away. Similarly, a factory shut down in Asia, whether due to a pandemic lockdown or a trade policy, means critical components like semiconductors don't arrive. Suddenly, car manufacturing in Germany or smartphone assembly in America faces crippling shortages. The system's obsession with efficiency created single points of failure, and we are now living with the consequences. This fragility is forcing a great realignment. In response, many countries are now reshoring, bringing critical production like pharmaceuticals and microchips closer to home. We also see nearshoring to neighboring countries and friendshoring to trusted political allies. The primary motive is no longer just cost, but security and resilience. This shift creates a fundamental trade-off. It makes supply chains safer and can create domestic jobs, but it is almost always more expensive. The era of relentlessly falling prices for manufactured goods may be over. In this new paradigm, goods will cost more as we prioritize stability, but the world will depend less on single, potentially adversarial suppliers. It's a premium we are paying for economic insurance. Meanwhile, as established powers look inward, new economies are rising with astonishing speed. Nations like India, Vietnam, Nigeria, Indonesia, and Mexico are no longer on the periphery. They are becoming major players. Fueled by youthful demographics, a rapidly expanding middle class, and strategic investments in technology, They are capturing the manufacturing and service industries that are moving away from traditional centers. They are the new workshops and, increasingly, the new markets of the world. The unipolar economic order is fading. The balance of power is shifting towards a multipolar world. For older, developed economies, this is a moment of truth. They must adapt, not by resisting this change, but by finding new avenues for partnership, innovation, and specialized expertise. Technology is the other great force, a tidal wave reshaping every shore of the global economy. Artificial intelligence is the prime example of this dual-edged sword. It is unlocking incredible gains, boosting productivity by automating routine tasks and solving problems once thought impossible. Yet this same capability means it is also replacing jobs, from data entry to customer service, and is beginning to encroach on creative and analytical professions. The challenge isn't just about job loss, but about a fundamental shift in the value of human skills. The transition to renewable energy follows a similar pattern. It promises a greener, more sustainable future, but it profoundly disrupts traditional industries like coal, oil, and gas, affecting entire communities built around them. Furthermore, it creates new geopolitical dependencies. The competition for oil is being replaced by a race for lithium, cobalt, and rare earth minerals, the essential ingredients for batteries and wind turbines. In this whirlwind of change, even money itself is being reinvented. We're moving beyond speculative cryptocurrencies. Governments worldwide are actively developing central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs. These state-backed digital dollars, euros, or yuan promise to make transactions more efficient and could allow for instantaneous policy implementation, like stimulus payments. However, they also raise profound questions about privacy, surveillance, and the erosion of financial anonymity. The cashless future is no longer science fiction, it's a policy debate happening right now. So, after navigating all this complexity, what does the future hold? It will undoubtedly be challenging. The path forward is fraught with the risks of inflation, job displacement, and geopolitical rivalry. But it is also brimming with opportunities. Navigating this future will demand more than ever before, for individuals and nations alike. Adaptation, a commitment to lifelong learning of new skills, and a deep well of resilience will be key. The jobs of tomorrow will require us to work alongside technology, not compete against it. History teaches us that times of great disruption are also times of immense possibility. The breakdown of old systems creates the space for new, better ones to emerge. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the complexities of the global economy. The world is changing faster than ever, and staying informed is our best tool for preparation. If you found this series valuable, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Together, we can continue to make sense of these powerful forces and prepare for what comes next.